Welcome to the Radical Success Podcast, where we focus on internal transformation to experience external results. I'm your host and coach, Doreen Rainey. Join me each week for insightful messages and powerful interviews to equip you to take bold, courageous, and radical action to live the life you want and deserve. It's our latest episode, and it is your girl, Doreen Rainey. I am, as always, thrilled to come to you today with a conversation with another powerful woman who has played such a great role in my life these past several years. She has become a friend. She's become a masterminder with me. She's become my go-to natural hair journey girlfriend. And I'm just excited that she's here today for us to have this conversation to talk about the ridiculously possible. And as she shares this concept with you and how this concept came about for her, I hope that it opens up your mind, that it gives you new inspiration to go and think about what is your ridiculously possible dreams. So let me introduce you to Chereace Richards. She is a wife, mom, entrepreneur, and founder of the 21st Century Woman Community. She is a network marketing million-dollar earner and the author of Faith Focused Action, The Journey to Becoming Who You Are. Now, in 2006, Chereace was introduced to the profession of network marketing. And I am going to have her share that journey with you because it's a powerful lesson in what you need to commit to, what you need to focus on, and what it means to go all in if you want to build out the career of your dreams, the business of your dreams, your financial situation of your dreams, your health and wellness goals and dreams. And so she's going to be sharing that with you. And today, she hosts seminars geared towards financial education and empowerment. Her goal is to empower individuals and families with strategies to get out of debt, build wealth, and retire tax-free. She's been featured in Washington Post Magazine, Success from Home Magazine, Hustle Mama Magazine, Her Life, and the nonfiction compilation Wealthy Direct Sales Women. So please help me welcome to the podcast my good friend, Chereace Richards. Hey, Chereace.
Hey, Doreen.
I'm so looking forward to our conversation today. I have known you now for, has it been 7 years, 6 years?
Six or 7 years. It's been a while.
Yes. We met inside of a mastermind because great people, successful people, people continuing to improve themselves, people who have a higher vision for themselves are constantly investing in their own growth, their own development. And one of the byproducts of how I invest in my growth and my development through masterminds or collectives or programs is that I get to meet amazing women. And Chereace is one of those women, and we have moved beyond mastermind participants and have stepped into the realm of friends. We've traveled together, we've strategized together, we've supported each other in our various ventures. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with her because she has such insight into what it takes to not just get success, right? We hear that all the time, but to be honest and true and strategic and methodical about the success that you're trying to make. And so I know all about Chereace, and you heard a little bit about her bio at the beginning, but I want to hear it from her. So Chereace, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Yes. Well, first of all, Doreen, I want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. I am not just a friend, but a supporter. I love what you do. And it's truly an honor to be on this podcast with you today. So thank you so much. Excited to have this conversation. So just a little bit about myself. I have been an entrepreneur now for 14 years. Started in the industry back in 2006, called direct sales. Had no experience in the industry at all, but just like anything that we should do, just kind of like dug in and got the experience and the support. And within 2 years was blessed to walk away from a good government job where I was making six figures a year because of the income that I was making in that industry. So been full-time now for 12 years and really committed to helping women just live my ridiculous, or live their, I should say, live their ridiculously possible life through, whatever pathway they should choose, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's, philanthropy, whether it is, whatever career that you choose, just living your best life in your chosen path of work. So married, have two children, a college freshman, and then one at home with me that I'm venturing into homeschooling this year. So, we're not going to talk about that. That's another podcast. But just really, really focused on helping women to, be all that God has called them to be.
Yes, yes. And I know that I want to talk a lot about what that actually looks like and how women can create that in their lives, but I don't want our listeners to miss the nuggets in your story. And so you started out by saying that you went into entrepreneurship through direct sales. And within 2 years of being in that direct sales company, having no previous experience, having worked for the government for years and worked your way up the ranks, that in 2 years you walked away from a six-figure job. And so it begs the question, because I know that we have people listening that are either entrepreneurs and are looking to really expand or grow their revenue. There are entrepreneurs who are still working full time and trying to understand how and when is that transition going to happen. And then people who may be considering entrepreneurship. And so if you look back over those 2 years in hindsight, what would you say were three specific traits or characteristics or strategies that separated you from the pack?
Yep. So good question, right? And I share this with the teenagers I teach. I share this with women that I teach and mentor and coach. Number one, I made a decision. Like, I didn't just tiptoe in, but I made a decision that this is what I wanted to do. After doing my due diligence, doing the research, just made a decision that I was going to be all in. Right? Because so often we got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm all in. So I made that a decision. Number two was I became a student of the industry. I learned everything I needed to know about direct sales, why people were successful in the industry, why people were not successful in the industry. Like, I just became immersed in learning all that I could about the industry. So that was the second thing, right? I just became a student learning everything. That's part of the reason why I met you and that mastermind, because that's something that's just stuck with me, just becoming a lifelong learner about the industry that I'm venturing into. And then the third thing is that I was just 100% coachable. Like, I did what the successful people said to do. I learned very early on that success leaves clues. And so I just decided to do what the successful people did. And so whatever business that you're in, you're going to have people that make it and those that don't. And we get to choose. In life, we get to choose, right? And it may be a lot of people that don't make it work, right? That aren't having success. And trust me, in the direct sales industry, there's more people not having success than those that are. And so for me, I just decided to surround myself, hang around, learn from those that were being successful. And then I was able to do what I needed to do to win. Right. I just decided
Right.
I want to win. And I did what it took
Right.
to win.
Right. And this, oh my gosh, this is so good because I want to touch on each of those. So the first thing you talked about was making a decision. And it's been my experience that humans have a habit of self-deceiving themselves. And people will say that they've made a decision, but decisions always surround themselves with positioning. And so what I mean by that is someone says, well, I've decided I'm going to go for it in this business. But if you don't then position that decision, i.e. carve out the time, i.e. allocate resources, i.e. be willing to be uncomfortable, i.e. be willing to be inconvenienced. And so the decision is more than a talk or a period. It is,
Right.
and so I am surrounding myself with things that position me to actually act on the decision I've made.
Yeah. That's so key. Doreen, like that's everything. And I remember one of the biggest decisions that I made early on was I said, this is what I'm going to do. I had to start looking at like what was competing for that time that I could be building my business, right? Whether it was what family, whether it was TV, whether it was the people that I was hanging around. And part of that decision-making process was to cut things off, like to burn the boat in some regards, right? And so I remember having this conversation with my team, and I said, listen, guys, I got this issue here where I love watching TV. And I never forget, American Idol had just started, and I was like, all in. And I sat there one day and said, you're like, this is valuable time that you could be spending on your business, but you're watching someone else chase their dream.
Right.
Right. And so and here's the thing, part of that making decisions is realizing what you're capable of doing yourself and where you may need support. So I said, well, listen, we're going to do this together. And so let's commit for these next 90 days, take a small step, and let's just no watching TV for 90 days. And then here's what happened by making that decision in pursuit of building the business is my appetite changed for, watching TV. And so now it's not even part of what competes for my time now. And so it's those sacrifices in the beginning that, to your point, people are not willing to make, and then they wonder why they don't have the success that somebody else may have.
Right. And, we have conversations all the time about time management. And one of the areas for people that I try to get them to kind of shift their mindset around is that time cannot be managed because it is what it is. And I can't remember who I heard it from a while back, but I've been using this ever since, is that time is meant to be allocated, not managed.
Right.
And if you really make a decision about your career, about your relationship, about your money, about your business, then you have to decide, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to allocate time to this decision.
Right.
And I encourage people all the time, get out your calendar, scheduler. Like, you got to allocate sleep, right? So you got to allocate sleep. Start there. If you have family time and as a priority, you got to allocate family time. So put that in there, right?
Yeah.
And if you are working a full-time job, guess what? You got to allocate time for the commute. You got to allocate time for being there. And when you begin to see what's left to be allocated, then you really get a sense of urgency for the decisions that you've made. Because I don't care if you only have 30 minutes a day. Gosh darn it, you better be all in with that decision, those 30 minutes a day.
Girl, you better say that again. I'm going to tell you, when I started building, my children were 4 and 6 months old. So
Mm,
when you talk about the allocation of time, that's exactly what I had to do, because I had to commute to drop them off, get to work, pick them back up. I learned very early on that my health is my wealth. So I had to carve out time to work out and then get home, do mommy wife duties, put the kids to bed. And I remember I started working on my business in the beginning, like 9 o'clock in the evening, once all of that was done. Right. But it was important to me. Right.
right.
And so I was willing in the beginning to sacrifice a few hours of sleep so
Mhm.
I can put that time into the business, and those short-term sacrifices created long-term gain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The second point you talked about was that you became a student. And I am always fascinated. I talk to people, all the time who are looking for coaching, whether it's around their business or their own personal goals. And when I talk to entrepreneurs and I ask them things like, well, who's doing what you do the way you want to do it? Who are you kind of shadowing? Who are you stalking, per se, whether it's online, or who are you checking out? And many times they don't have an answer, right? It's, well,
Yeah.
nobody doing quite what I'm doing. Well, guess what? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Or, well, I really haven't looked at that before. And so I'm always fascinated that you made a decision that you're going to do X, right? Maybe you made the decision, I'm going to get healthy. Man, you need to become a student. Like, what is your body like? How do you respond? Your stress level, your sleep needed. What about eating? What about, like, how have you not like totally dived into this? And when you talk about entrepreneurship, how have you not totally dived into, first and foremost, the industry that you're in?
Yes.
Understand what's happening, what's new, who the players are, and then the actual logistics, like diving into marketing, diving into sales, diving into operations, and being that student and getting those lessons. And so you have, built teams, you've had staff, you've had all of that. What has been your observation about why people don't value learning and how it makes a difference in their results?
Yeah, I think that people feel like they know enough,
Mm-hmm.
and what they know is sufficient
Mm-hmm.
for growing this mega business, like someone who has spent thousands of hours
Right.
learning and perfecting their craft. I think it's just a misconception. I think people don't really take the time to understand. They underestimate what it takes
Mm-hmm.
to really build this successful enterprise that they desire.
Right.
They have the desire,
Mm-hmm.
right? But part of building the business is learning the industry. Like, it's all part of the process. Yeah, you want to jump out there and you want to be in the front, or you want to make the money, but don't abort the process by trying to, jump over
Right.
the learning and the studying so that you can become the expert
Mm-hmm.
in the industry,
Right.
right? Nobody just, shows up on the scene. Really, it's what you do behind the scenes that prepares you for the success that you have. So when you talk to successful people, like, they saw themselves there, right? They prepared for when those opportunities came, so they were ready for them. And so I think that people just underestimate what it takes to, have the big enterprises that they desire. And it takes a lot of behind the scenes work. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of study. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of research. It takes connecting what successful people are doing in your industry. Not that you have to, do it the exact same way, because we're all individuals. We all have our, spin. and our style. But at the end of the day, you got to learn what it's going to take to be successful in your industry.
Yes. Yes. And I think you hit the nail right on the head that people do, you know, enough to get started, right? I think that we all right now today, if we wanted to lose weight, get out of debt, start a business, you know, we know enough to get started, but there's a category of you don't know what you don't know. And I've talked about this before. If you don't surround yourself with people who are in your industry, if you don't surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, you're never going to get the insight that they have about things you don't even know, you don't even know, you don't know about.
Don't know what you don't know. And you don't
Right,
know, you don't
right.
know.
And you can get around
Right.
some of these people, you can get around some of these networks and masterminds, and you can literally be going, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I needed to know that. Like I didn't know that's how they do things. I didn't know that's how you market this way. I didn't know that's how you sell this way. I didn't know. And it's a disservice when you don't become a student. It's a disservice to yourself, and it's limiting your level of success that you could probably ascend to. Yeah.
And it's a disservice to the industry that you're trying to go into as well, because you're representing, you know, you're representing yourself, but you're representing an industry. And that used to happen to me all the time with people who, you know, didn't think they needed training, didn't want to learn, you know, the steps that it took to be in front of the room. And then they went out and did things all wrong. And what people don't really, you know, take into account is that you only get one shot with people.
Right.
And they're like, no, boom, that doesn't work.
Right.
You know, especially in the industry that I was in for so many years. So yeah, you got to be a student.
Right. And then the third thing you said was that you decided that you were going to be 100% coachable. So what does that mean to you? What does that look like for you?
So for me, that was about getting mentors. That was getting coaches. And that was surrounding myself with the people who not only was where I wanted to be, but doing what I wanted to do. And when they made a suggestion, I was open.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't come back with my version of, you know, why I did it that way.
Right.
When they gave me feedback, I was open, right, to make the shifts as necessary. But when they told me what to do, I did it. I didn't have, you know, my own opinion, my own version. No, I sought out these professionals in the industry for a reason. Right. Because they had obtained a level of success that I was going for. So why am I going to go with my own thoughts and opinions? No, I was coachable. If they said, Chereace, go left, I went left. Right. If they said, do it this way, then I did it that way. Why? Because that's the way that works.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I don't know about other people, but I don't like wasting a lot of time or money. Hello.
Right. Right. And I think what is so important that I hope the listeners are picking up with is that there were two parts to your definition. You talked about being coachable. You talked about getting mentors. You talked about getting a coach. You talked about getting people who already knew how to do what you're trying to do. But the other part of that definition for you was, and then I did it.
Hello. Right. Right. That's it.
Right. Because I think many of us love to get the strategy. We love to get the blueprint. We love to get all the steps that they did to make it happen. And then we do one of two things. We either just really don't do it at all. Like we've got all these strategies, all these systems, all these processes that we never took action on. Or we do it, but we look at the total requirement and then we make a decision, oh, we don't take all that.
Right.
I mean, I know they told me that this launch process was 30 steps, but it don't take all that. I'm going to just do 7, 12, and 15 and see how this all works out.
And then they surprised when it don't work quite the way they want it to work. Right.
Exactly. So being coachable not only means that you get that mentorship that connection with people who really have a desire for you to win and want to show you how to win, but then you also respect the coach, the mentor enough to then trust the process and do what they're telling you to do. Because nothing is an overnight success. Everything is a process. And I think sometimes we get impatient with the process, but no one gets a pass from going through the process. And so we have to trust that these 3 things or these 7 steps or that strategy or that process is actually going to produce the results. But if I don't do it all, every step for a period of time, I will never know. I'll be making judgments with faulty data, with incomplete data. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so now I know that you've taken all of that experience, all of that success that you've had in that industry, in your businesses, and now you're working with the 21st century woman. And so tell us about what that mission is and who this woman is.
Yes, so the 21st century woman, it's a community of women who are all about connecting and collaborating and really growing to that next level, really discovering your God-given purpose so that you can serve and impact the world the way you were created to do that. We're all about helping women to live their ridiculously possible life. And what does that mean? That means for, women who have these big dreams, right? These grand ideas, to know that it is possible, right? And so a lot of times we do have these big dreams, right? And what stops us is, we don't understand the process. And that may be right now based on where you are, but that doesn't have to be, the situation a year from now. As you grow, as you stay in the learning, as you commit and make a decision to the process, all of those big ideas that you have came from above, right? I believe that God deposited those things in your spirit. So it's going to be through your faith and action that brings them to fruition. But guess what? They're possible because when you look out in the universe and you look out in this world, people are doing big things. They're doing amazing things that was first once an idea.
Yeah.
So I've always been of the mindset that if someone has done it, that means it can be done.
Right.
And if it can be done by them, it can be done by me. I just need to figure out the who, what, when, where, and how, and get busy.
Right.
And get busy.
I love the messaging of ridiculously possible, because I think that we can, even if our mindset is of a place where we don't understand what's possible, when we don't understand what we deserve, when we don't understand abundance, we don't even get to the place of ridiculous, right? We get to a place of, I want to own my own home, right? We get to a place of, I want to, have a business and make 6 figures, right? We get to a place of, I want to build my corporate career and get a corner office. But that's not ridiculous.
That's not ridiculously possible, right? That's possible. And you know it, right? Right.
And so when we talk about ridiculous, like, what is it that you speak to when people say, but I don't get it? I mean, how is not, what is ridiculous? Like, what does that look like? I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah. So it's scary. It's crazy. And the way I even came up with that is one day on vacation, I'm creating a list of all the things I wanted to do, not just for myself, but for my family, for my community. And here's what happened. I'm making this list and I put a price tag. I put a cost next to each one of them. And when I get to add it all up, I said, this is crazy. So my initial thought was, this is ridiculous. Like, this is not, I don't even know. Like, doubt immediately, like we immediately gravitate to, this is crazy. This is ridiculous. This is not even possible. Like, I don't even know how I can do it.
Right.
And then God just like stepped in that moment and said, but it's possible. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's ridiculously possible.
Yeah.
right? And we know that the word says that anything is possible to them who believe.
Right.
And so if we believe
Yeah.
that it's possible, and we've seen, things unfold in our lives before, then why can't this big thing
Mhm.
become our reality?
Yes. Yes. And I hope that every person listening caught your homework for this podcast to be able to make a list of everything that you want to do in this lifetime and covering all categories. You talked about what you want to do with your business, with philanthropy and your family. And yes, all of you listening have probably in some form or fashion done a goal setting exercise, done a vision board exercise, or made a list or journaled. But what I love about what Chereace just shared is that now you got to put a price on it, right? All of those things cost you something. You want to be a philanthropist? What is the cost of that? Are you giving away college scholarships? Okay, is that $40,000 a year times the next 20 years? Are you looking at being able to fund churches or wells or animal saves or extinction or the environment? Like, what is the cost of that? If you want
Right.
to have a lifestyle, right? You want to travel, you want to see different parts of the world. Yes, you can travel on the low or you can travel on the luxury side, but it still costs you something.
Right.
And so you have to be able to put a dollar sign to that. So at the end of the list, you get out your handy dandy, smartphone and you flip over to that calculator and you start adding up. And next thing you know, you got some zeros and some commas and some decimal points, because just about all the things that we want to do, yes, there is service and joy and giving, but there's also a monetary cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you put all of that together and you got that word that, yes, it's ridiculous, but it's also possible, I'm
Right.
sure your eyes just probably lit up with, this is the message that many people need, not just me.
Yeah, we all, everybody needs it, because I think that, this world can be so negative sometimes. And I learned very early on that 1% doubt and you're out.
Mm,
And that's so true. And so we start to question, we start to doubt, and our belief is not what we say in our spirit, in our heart, in our subconscious. Like, we say one thing, but it's not congruent to what we really believe.
right.
And so I want to show women that it is possible. It
Yeah.
may be crazy. Everybody may not understand it. You may not fully understand it. But guess what? You get to move and walk in faith. And the more you walk, the more you stay in action. Because listen, it's three things you need. You need faith, you need focus, and you need action. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Okay? You can
Yeah.
have all the action that you want, but if you don't have faith and you don't believe, it's not going to happen. So we have to be aligned with what we say and what we believe is ridiculously possible for our life.
Yes. And building that faith, building that belief, and being consistent in action. I think that sometimes in this world that we live in the one and done world, as opposed to building strength and building muscle. And we talk about this quite a bit on this podcast, that your faith is a muscle that is built. It's not something that you can pick up and put down and expect it to operate at maximum capacity. Your belief is something that you build up. Your action is something that you stay consistent with. And so that faith, belief, and action, putting those three components together, man, you have just positioned yourself for the ridiculously possible. Yes.
Hey.
And I know inside of your 21st Century Women movement that you have these pillars that you speak to. So share a little bit about those pillars. And I know that today we'll probably talk about just maybe one of the pillars, but just share what those pillars are.
So our pillars are spirituality or faith, relationships, your physical celebration. We talk about gratitude, and we talk about your image. And so all of those things together, and we talk about your finances. Did I mention finances?
Oh, okay.
We talk about finances. We talk about finances. So that's like a holistic approach to the whole woman. And I'm so big on women being whole and complete from the inside out, because if you are going to create the ridiculously possible, it really begins on the inside.
Yeah. And so with those pillars, I just want to kind of highlight two of those. I want to talk about gratitude, and then I want to talk about the financial, because I think that all of them, like you said, a holistic approach to success is the best approach to success. And there is an internal piece and there's an external piece, no matter how you define success or what success looks like for you. And so kind of looking at those things, let's talk about gratitude first. Why is that so important to creating holistic success?
Yeah, because we forget. We forget what we did. We forget the wins that we had. We forget, how God moved in our life before. We forget. And it's the forgetting that keeps us stuck, right? Because we can't see a way forward when we're stuck in what's not working. But if we pause and change our perspective and start looking at what has happened, what we were able to do before, and, maybe things aren't working, but there's something that we can glean from that situation. Like our approach and our perspective towards failure will determine whether we stay stuck or we move forward. And so I think gratitude opens our heart, it opens our mind to see things from a different perspective. And yeah, it may not be working the way we want to right now in this season, but guess what? At least we know what not to do the next time. Look, thank you that I know what not to do the next time. And I think the gratitude just opens us up to recognize that we may not be where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. And as long as we keep moving forward, we'll get to where we're supposed to be and where we want to be.
Right. And so, we hear things about a gratitude journal. We hear things about, how you should actually demonstrate your gratitude or what process looks like. So when you talk about gratitude, how does that literally look? Like, what can people do to get themselves in a grateful state of mind consistently?
For me, it's about prayer and meditation every day. I mean, just having that quiet time every moment gives me that opportunity to reflect. It gives me the openness to have different perspectives on things that I may be looking at in the wrong way. It gives me an opportunity to appreciate what's possible for today, because it's a brand new day full of grace, full of new mercies. And so just having that quiet time ritual for me is the big difference in how I really approach gratitude.
Yeah. And I think the word you use is so powerful, ritual, which means, again, this isn't something you pick up and then put down and then, times are, going through something. Let me see if I can be grateful and see if that helps. It's something that is ritualistic, it's consistent, it's embedded into the DNA of your day, right?
And how did I get there? How did I get there, right? I think that's important that you highlight that point, right? Because if our alarm isn't going off, like our internal alarm, that, hey, I need to pray, or I forgot, like my day is off because I didn't have that quiet time this morning, then that's a problem, right? So you have to create that discipline. And, if that means that you have to wake up 30 to 15 minutes early to have that consistent activity every day, then that's what you have to do. And not just with your quiet time, but you need to do that in everything. Like if your alarm is not going off, that I haven't worked on my business today, that's a problem.
Right. I haven't worked out today. I haven't, all of the alarms that really requires daily attention. from us.
Yeah.
And if
Mm-hmm.
we aren't giving our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul, our business, our relationships, if we're not giving it daily attention, then there should be some alarms going off. And if
Right.
you don't have alarms, and you should, then let this conversation serve as a warning to you. If you are having health challenges, or you need to lose weight, or you need to eat healthier, and there are no alarms that go off for you every day, you need to reconnect with what you need to do to take care of your body. If you want to build a business, get more clients, make money, but you haven't been doing anything in that area for days or weeks, then you need an alarm to come bring you back to, oh my gosh, I'm not making any money in my business. And so, yes, the alarm should be going off. But if it's not going off in an area where it should be going off, then this is a
Right.
great time to regroup about, how have I gotten so far off my health, my business, my relationship, and make
Yeah.
the decision today to get back in gratitude about it
Mm-hmm.
and allocate the time
Mm-hmm.
to pay attention and do something tangible in that area every single day. Yeah. And
Yes.
then the other pillar that you talked about that I wanted to touch on was the financial pillar. So tell us about the importance of that in terms of our holistic success, and why that gets a spot as one of the pillars inside of the 21st century woman community.
Yeah, I think it's important because as a community, not just as of women, but just as a people, right? We need to be wise and understand how money works. And when we understand the rules of the game, we can play the game to win. And so, very early on in the start of building my business, I was making a lot of money. And we know people who have made a lot of money and then lost a lot of money. And I was just very clear that I didn't want to be that person who made millions of dollars and then lost millions of dollars. And so I sought out professionals who can give me wise counsel, once again, being coachable,
Right.
right? And so just took advantage of some strategies that worked well for my family, and became committed to showing other people how they can use these same principles to get their financial house in order,
Yeah.
how they can get out of debt, how they can build wealth, how they can retire tax free. And the first step is all about educating people on what this process looks like, because if you're going to build a business, if you're going to be in service, if you're going to travel the world, whatever these goals are, you're going to have to understand money. Well, no, first of all, you're going to have money.
Right. Right.
Right. And so, you know, and whatever the barriers are for you not having the money, we got to just be honest and, get the counsel that you need so that you can reach your financial goals. Because people start the year every year and they're like, I need to get out of debt. These student loans are just overwhelming me, and they can't be overwhelming until you understand and get real strategies on how to eliminate whatever debt you have and begin the process of funding your dreams
Right. Right.
differently than you may be doing today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, I just became committed to helping our community understand how money works and
Right.
how they can, understand how to, do those three things that I mentioned earlier: getting out of debt, building wealth, and then retiring tax-free.
Yeah. And looking at all of those and some of the things that you just shared, the first thing is, I hope people picked up on the fact that there are rules around money. Like, money really isn't a mystery. Money
Right.
has um, some rules around it, how it moves through our system, how it moves through this country, how it moves internationally. And there is no lack of money. There is a lack of understanding of the rules in order to position yourself to be accessible to the money that's out there. And so, first off, I just want people to understand that if you haven't taken a step back and said, going back to being a student, right? Everyone says they want to be wealthy. Everyone says they want to be a millionaire. Everyone says they want to be a seven-figure business. But if you ask many of these people, so tell me the rules of money. Because what you basically said is you're about to do something that 95% of the people in the world don't do. They don't make $1 million. They don't
Right.
have retirement funds that will last them throughout their days. They don't have a position in their finances where they're passing on wealth, where they are creating generational opportunities through money for their future generations. And so if you're one of those people trying to make money, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be a philanthropist, but you haven't become a student of the rules of money, then your alarm should be sounding.
Right. 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 And I mean, it goes back to people don't know what they don't know. Right. And so it's like what you don't know can be costing you. Right. And so just like you plan for your business, you should be planning for how you're going to spend your money or save your money or invest this money, these millions of dollars that you want. And the first step comes with just getting educated.
Yeah. And if people are going, okay, I hadn't really thought about money rules before. I've just been trying to make it, save it, or, pay the bills. And being educated in this is like a new concept for me. So what are some recommendations, or what's a recommendation you have for people to get started on their education piece?
Right. I say connect with someone, a trusted resource, like myself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But someone who, but here's the thing, someone who is where you want to be, doing what you want to do, that can give you wise counsel. Right. And it doesn't matter where you are on the totem pole of money. Right. It's just about getting wise counsel and then following the counsel. Right. Because I remember in the beginning when I started understanding some of the strategies of the super rich or the super wealthy, the way that, people created generational wealth for their family, my initial response was to be very skeptical. Skeptical because I didn't know. I only knew what I knew. But I had to step back and say, well, just because you don't know, Chereace, does that mean that it's not working? Right. Does that mean that people aren't having success? You just didn't know. And so now is your opportunity to learn so that you could know. And so that's the biggest thing, is just really connecting with someone to get the information, right? And then when you get it, come up with a holistic approach to reaching your financial goals, understanding how to maximize, whatever you're trying to do.
Yes. And then you also talked about, debt reduction or getting out of debt. What are some either misconceptions or some challenges that people have when it comes to getting out of that stronghold of debt?
Yeah, that I'm gonna pay my debt off first and then, or I need to cut back on this and then, right? And so my approach is a simultaneous approach to it, right? And so that's where the education comes in, because I start to show people what's happening with every dollar that they have, and where most people kind of focus on reducing their lifestyle so they can have more money, right? Because here's where people are right now. They save whatever's left over.
Right.
And it's the concept that I like to call paying yourself last. And so for me, I shift that and say, let's look at ways that we can reduce some non-traditional ways of how your dollar is spent, right? And then we can look at not just reducing your lifestyle, but increasing your lifestyle. And then we're saving while we're getting rid of the debt, and then we're building wealth at the same time. And so you can do that. We don't have to subscribe to, traditional methods of cutting back on our lifestyle. Like I ask people all the time, who wants to do that? Right. Who wants to stop traveling? Who wants to cut their cable off? Who wants to stop getting their hair done? Ladies, nobody wants to do that. And so the approach that I take is not doing that, because that's not a conversation that people want to have.
Right.
People like, I want to save and I want to spend, right? So
Right.
you can't do both at, you know, to the same, but you know, the strategy is that we can do it simultaneously. There's a way
Right. Right.
without compromising your lifestyle.
Right. Right.
Yep.
And the third area that you talked about was around retirement. And so, what are
Mm-hmm.
some myths or even mistakes that people make when it comes to thinking about what my future will look like when I no longer am quote unquote working?
Right. So number one, people don't plan to fail; they just fail to plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is that they don't look at what that number needs to be to maintain the lifestyle that they want to have in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they don't know, you know, what the number should look like between now and the time they retire. They're just going off what they heard some HR person say when they got started. And so it's no real strategy behind the choices that they make when it comes to retirement. The second thing is that people really don't really think about what happens at retirement, right? If you are um, putting money away to reduce your taxable income in this year, when you go to take your money in 30 years, you got to pay taxes. And so the question I ask people all the time, do you think taxes are going to be higher, lower, or the same in the future? Right? And people say, I think they're going to be higher. And I said, well, I do too. And so if you believe the taxes are going to be higher in the future, does it make sense to defer paying taxes when taxes are going to be higher? Right? They're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't put two and two together. So, you know, we're deferring the problem. We're putting money away to save on taxes. There's ways that you can do that without traditional qualified plans,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where the wise counsel comes in. And then we can look at creating a tax favored retirement where you're not paying taxes on the harvest,
Right.
but we're paying taxes on the seed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus the harvest. So, you
Right.
know, that's where the education comes in. And people are like, I never thought about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know what you don't know. And then you get, you know, awareness, get new information, and then you begin to question these
Right.
traditional ways that we've grown up with,
Mm-hmm.
that we've been taught, that we've seen our parents do, our grandparents, and there's other ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everything that you've just shared around money, around the rules, around debt, it goes right back to, have you become a student and have you
Yeah.
studied and have you connected with people who have the insight, who have the strategies and the tools to help you really understand what your next steps should be. Um, and so, you know, I just want to thank you so much, Chereace, for sharing all of your insight, all of your tips around money, around time, around how you built your business. Before I let you go, I want, number one, for you to share some of the best advice that you've ever gotten, and then also share how people can connect with you.
Yes. So the best advice that I have received, so much good stuff, good stuff. But you know what? I would say this is something I heard, and I can't remember where I heard it from, but to to thine own self be true.
Mm-hmm.
Just be true to yourself. And I think that in this social media world that we're in, that can be a challenge, right? We can say it, but are we really being true to ourselves? Because when we're true to ourselves, it doesn't matter what anybody says, how they support us or don't. This is the vision that we have for our life and for our business. And this is where how I'm going to build, how I'm going to move forward. And so I would say that's the best advice because it's a process that I had to learn,
Right.
especially being in this industry where there's big personalities. I'm naturally an introvert. And so when I tried to be something that I wasn't, I just didn't have the sustained success that I wanted. It wasn't until I was true and clear about who I was and what my voice was that I was able to create the success that I have.
Yeah.
And so for people that want to connect with me, would love to connect. And you do that simply. I'm on social media at Chereace on every place, on every platform. It's real easy to find me. I do have a 21st Century Woman group on Facebook, so you can connect there. And then if you go to my website, ChereaceRichards.com, you can connect to all of my social media channels and then connect with me as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I so love this conversation. I hope that every person listening, if you're driving, not so much, but if not driving, that you have pulled out your phone and take some notes, you grabbed a sheet of paper, because there were some real nuggets dropped during this conversation. And bigger than that is that faith, belief, but that third piece, action. And so I want you to make sure you act on something that you heard today that will help further your own success, that will help you grow to whatever next level you're working towards in whatever area of life is most important to you now. So thank you so much, Chereace. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Doreen.
Thanks for listening to the Radical Success Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Be sure to head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Until next time, stay radical.